It is about 5:01 p.m. Wednesday, March 13th, 2019, and welcome to the final lecture, week 6 for business law. And as I shared with you earlier in the quarter, that it would be very, very fast. Time will go fast, and matter of fact, with our daylight savings time, we sprung forward an hour last Sunday, so we moved up an hour. So basically, the lecture now that's taking place now would not be taking place for another hour from now. So we're springing ahead, moving forward, and I hope that you learned a lot about business law. I hope that this course has helped you to understand just some basic stuff about contracts. That's the main thing that this part of business law is taught. There are a lot of other issues in business law that when I was doing the residential and the 11-week course that was more detailed, but suffice it to say that this course is set up to basically help you understand some of the things like patents and trademarks, understand a little bit about organizations from sole proprietorship up to corporations through the contracts that need to be in writing. I hope that the little piece that I put together for you at the very beginning of the course about the statute of frauds, reducing it to a mnemonic, MILEGS, which is M for contracts of marriage, Y for contracts of a year over, L for land contracts, E for executor contracts where executor pays the expenses, G for goods over 500, and S for suretyship or insurance. The L came into play in some of the assignments, but with the contract that you were preparing, starting with week 2 and the draft through week 3, and then the final contract that you submitted in week 5, we were dealing with goods over $500. Remember those toys? They were over $500, and it was reminding you of that letter. So you should save that. I remember that my legs going back 41 years ago when I took the bar exam in 1978, and used that to help me to know the statute of frauds for the bar exam, which I was able to pass. So very, very, very neat way to learn that. It wasn't original to me. It was the bar exam people that gave us that, and I never forgot that. So thought that would help you guys out a little bit. And so now as you proceed further into your educational career, learning things about what business is all about. I used to also teach business ethics, and very interesting course when I taught that. They did away with business ethics and then came out with a gen ed ethics course that everybody takes. So anyway, suffice it to say, I've enjoyed teaching this course. I periodically am asked to come and help out the business department. I'm in criminal justice. That's where most people know me from. But when you are a student who goes to law school, you are well versed in contracts, as I was, because I represented entertainers, athletes. I did real estate deals. I did corporate residential and all those kinds of things. So very, very, very important. Contracts are very important when it comes to dealing with business. So let's go on and share my screen. You have my instructor information here. The little piece about statute of frauds again, which you should be well aware of. And finally, we get down here and let's look at our rubric, time for reflection. And you're going to make sure that you satisfy the requirements by preparing this brochure. There's 3 parts, double-sided, and contains art, and you're going to deal with each of the issues that are listed here to get your 30 points. Okay, so this is going to be due on Friday, not Sunday, but Friday of this week. And then, of course, your discussion post. So this is the final lecture, and you'll see posted here week 6 after today. All right. Let's get to our announcements. Make sure we got everything. So we're going to deal with ethics and business law. Ethics is so important, and we're going to just touch on it. As I said, it is a course all by itself, but we're going to tie that into operating with these contracts and in doing business. So you had 2 chapters, chapters 9 and 12, Essentials in Business Law, and then look at technology strategies and management reflections, and then dealing with the Toyota debacle, which is interesting. As I look out my window from where I live here, I look to my left, and there's a big Toyota dealership that was built up since we moved into this complex. And you know, so anyway, then you complete the activities, ethics and the law, and flashcards. And then your discussion post. Of course, your initial post was due yesterday by 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time, from unethical to illegal. Then your reply post, of course, is due Friday, this Friday, 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. And then the written assignment that I told you, time for reflection. Make sure you follow the rubrics for all written assignments. Remind you that it is due this Friday. After Friday, nothing will be accepted. And these are 2 reminders. First reminder is to remind you that the quarter does end, so you're clear that it is going to end Friday and not Sunday. And then reminding you if you could take time to complete the end of quarter evaluation. There is an announcement that I posted, also reminding you to complete that as well. And then adversity is the springboard to success. You know what that's all about. I shared that week 1, okay? And some of you have had adversity, and I've worked through with some of you to get this done. So let's look at the course calendar real quick, very short. You can see right here, we're right at the end. The live lecture, initial post yesterday, reading assignment that was due Monday, your reply post the 15th, your written assignment the 15th, and then again click on this, and it reminds you that the quarter ends on 11:59 on that day. Very, very, very important. So you got reminders right there for you. All right, so let's get to the week 6 module. We're coming out of the calendar. Again, going over the assignments. And it tells you in detail what you're supposed to do. Basically, it is kind of a survey assignment, and you're going to explain some of the things that you learn from classifications of law, contract formation, illegal agreements, and types of property to business ethics. And so you're going to create the brochure to include these 5 issues. Make sure that you provide them, okay? And it's a trifold design, double-sided, and draw attention to your brochure by using art, easy to design information for your content, and color. All right, and then submit it the same way that you do with your written assignments. Okay. And that's it. Then your initial post that I've already expressed that's due on yesterday, and your reply post is due Friday. Okay. And then, of course, your live lecture, which the keyword that I'm going to give you, which I already know what it is, and I will give it to you at the end or some point during this. And probably, if you paid attention, a lot of times I already mentioned the keyword before, but I don't tell you it is a keyword until later. So we're going to talk about the difference between laws and ethics, and we're going to deal with a case that deals with a breach of ethics and argue why ethics are necessary. All right. So the Toyota strategy and management reflections, I'm not going to spend time with, but you can take time to look at that on your own. But I am going to talk about ethics and the law. I am going to talk about that, okay? And then these are the assignments and activities that help you. All right. So let's talk about law and ethics. So what is ethics? Ethics is basically you doing the right thing, or as when you take the ethics course, you study to learn the systems of ethics that I won't go into detail on, but you know what I'm talking about. If you take that course, the truth of the matter is that you should operate on the basis of ethical decisions. In fact, recalling the first week of this course, one of the transferable skills that we discuss is we focus on ethics. That means being honorable in terms of what you're doing, keeping your word. That means not being deceptive or using deceptive practices. And you should be aware that what is always legal should be ethical, but what is ethical or unethical is not always illegal. And so the point of the matter is that when the law says you must do something, it's based upon the rules. That's the one word I always remind students of. It's a bunch of rules that tell you what you need to do, how to comply properly, and what not to do. So just for example, just reducing it to the point that you know that it is a rule or a law that in order for certain contracts to be enforceable, they need to be in writing. And Uh, I see a hand raised, but I know why, because, hold on, let me go back. Let me go back to stop sharing. Okay, the hand is raised. Yeah. No. Activate sound is working. Student says sound isn't working. Can you send it to me at 6 and I'll rewatch this? No, sound works. You have to make sure that you activate audio, as I see one student has. And if you don't activate audio, you can't hear. That's why I put in the chat box at the beginning that you have to activate audio. Okay, activate audio to hear the lecture. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go back to where we were. Give me a second here. Let me fix that. All right, let me go back to sharing. Okay. So when you activate audio, turn off your camera as well, because I can see you. So just deactivate your camera. There's a little thing on the camera that you hit so that you can, it will just show a picture. So you just hover over your camera thing and then click on it. There we go. All right. So now back to what I was saying with ethics. Ethics is operating on the basis of good principles. As you found out from your discussion post, you take a look at it, unethical practices, such as, for example, there's some unethical things. For example, is representing that your product is 100% of something when in fact it's 80% of something. That's unethical and possibly illegal, but it is misrepresenting. So a misrepresentation of what you're doing. The old bait and switch, you know, you'll get ads, for example, that tell you to come out and buy a certain product, and you get there and you find out that there's not a reasonable quantity of that product, and what they do is they switch it up with a higher product or a product that's not as superior. That is an unethical practice. And so there are agencies that deal with these issues, such as the Consumer Protection Agency, the Federal Trade Commission, and then we deal with organizations such as OSHA, which came about because the Occupational Safety and Health Act for workers working on conditions. So if you have a business and you're operating, the property or the working conditions should be safe, and so the employers are to maintain that so as not to injure or create hazardous conditions for employees to work. So if you work with certain machines, you might have things to wear, goggles, or you might have shields that you wear, you might have gloves, you might have certain clothing that you need to put on. Those kind of things is so that you are not injured. For example, if you're a fireman, there is certain equipment that you have that is required to protect the individual who is performing that job. And so it is important that you understand that the ethical principles are very, very much there for the protection of employees and also the public as well. So you deal with recalls all the time, all the time. I just recently received a recall for my car from the manufacturer relating to airbags. And so many of you probably have had recalls that are sent out to you, letting you know that there's some condition or defect that they discovered in the product that you have, and that is telling you to take it to the manufacturer, as in the case of the car, and they perform the work. The work that was performed on my car, I saw the bill would have been $500, but because it was under the recall and it was a requirement for the company to let us know about the possible damage that could be done, or injury, or either the loss of life, then they repaired that for free. But what happens is vehicles are registered, or either products are generally registered. You know, you get these little pieces of paper encouraging you to take out either a warranty, extended warranty, or at least the manufacturer's warranty, so you notify the manufacturer that you've purchased the product, and then if there's a defect that comes about, they'll send you a notice. It happens with toys all the time, And as a matter of fact, looking at the one that I just clicked on, Mattel. So like letting you know there was lead paint involved with, and there's some magnets, and that they send something like this and it lets you know what's wrong with it. See, it says here that over 19 months in 2006 and 2007, Mattel recalled 14 million toys. Also, the other reason why there are recalls is because companies are subjected, as it says, to lawsuits, and then the government requires them to notify you, as I was discussing a few minutes ago, so that you're not injured. And so look at what it said regarding these toys. There were two issues involved: excessive levels of lead, and we know that lead is poisonous, and that lead leads to some serious brain damage and physical injuries to individuals, including our kids who play with these toys, who oftentimes will put them in their mouths. And then also some have detachable magnets which could be swallowed, and you've seen that before, where based upon the age that children will get these toys, that, you know, one of the first things they'll do is put things in their mouth. So that's one example. Now let's look at what Toyota does in terms of cars, and this is similar. Notice they'll say what the topic is, and one of the common recalls is either brakes or either airbags. As I was saying, I think, let's see, we have in our house here 4 cars, and 3 of the cars got recalls for airbags. But notice this, it tells the problems that we're dealing with brakes. Now you know and I know how important that is. And so again, the bottom line is that these recalls are there to protect the public. And it is very, very, very important. And it is unethical and illegal for the company to conceal these things. Right now, those of you who are familiar with the plane crash that took place the other day in Ethiopia, and kind of hit home for me, one of my grammar school friends I've known since grammar school, and she was a former client of mine and neighbor. Her son was one of those that was killed in that plane crash. involving those Boeings. So now I saw something today where the president is ordering that these planes not fly anymore, even though the FAA and also the manufacturer says that they're safe. And usually the manufacturer is one of the first ones to come out and say they're safe. However, there are some issues, and if you pay close attention to what's been going on in this, and this relates directly to our topic of ethics and dealing with the law, is that you are, as a customer, if you find out that you're flying on one of those planes, you can ask the airline to switch you to another plane because they recognize the seriousness of the issue. And I can tell you this, that there's going to be lawsuits from these crashes. There always is whenever there are major crashes, and that I can tell you the bottom line is that people are still going to fly, but they're going to be a little leery about this and trying to get to the bottom of it. You know, one of the first things you hear whenever one of these crashes take place is about the black box, which is supposed to contain the data and information about what happens. And one of the first issues that usually the manufacturer of the product, in this case the airplane, Boeing, is saying that their planes are safe, and that this is, and so what they're trying to bounce it back on is error of the pilot and or co-pilot. Anyway, the bottom line is that then makes the airline, of course, still responsible. But the bottom line is that the law requires that there be safety for individuals who are traveling and also make purchases for items. Any questions about how ethics works? If you have any questions, type it in the chat box. If not, then I'll presume there are no questions. Okay, I will say this as I move on, is that businesses are required to make the right decision, whether it's based on ethics or law or a combination of both. I would say being in business, it is always a good practice to help the customer out, even if sometimes you have to redo something. For example, you know, commonly you'll go to a restaurant and you'll order something, and I've seen it happen. It's happened with me, it's happened with my wife, and it's probably happened with you or someone you know, that you ordered something and you didn't like it, and so you were asked if you want something else, and then sometimes they will even, for example, bring your food and it's cold or something else is wrong with it, and then you'll usually get the manager, and it's good business for the manager to do something, and we have had concessions on our bills. Well, this gets back into the issue of, again, it's not required by law for the company to do that, but it is a good ethical practice and also a good business practice. I would say, summing it up pretty much, is that businesses succeed when they operate ethically. They also succeed when the customer is first and you do everything that's possible to take care of the customer. After all, if there are no customers, there is no business, and that's pretty much it. So anyway, to familiarize yourself and remind yourself of what you read in the materials that you were given this week in the chapters, you could go over these cards, these flashcards. And the flashcards, for example, have a question. And then what you can do at home, and you won't hear it because I have my headphones on, is if you click this, I just heard it in my headset. You couldn't hear it, but it read Rule of Civil Conduct, commanding you to do what is right and prohibiting you to do what is wrong. And then you clip, that's the question, and they call that the law. The law. So you understand that, and that's what the law will do. All right? And then there's 86 remaining cards. And then you could go to the next one. Old judge-made law that our founders brought from England based on custom and usage that the courts recognize as binding on the community. We call that common law. And that's, but however, much of our law today is based upon what we call statutory law. So you flip these over. Any law that is a formal enactment of the legislator, and that's what I was getting to, is a statute. And that's what we have. So you deal with statutes in your various jurisdictions. Now, when I say statute of frauds has been codified in every jurisdiction to indicate either by common law or either by statute. Statute is, for example, when you go to the law book and you see what the statute tells you and what you should do or what you should not do, whether it's in criminal or whether it's in civil operating in business. The legislature, which is in the federal level, the House and the Senate, passes laws and they put them in the form of statutes, such as the Civil Rights Act, Voting Rights Act, the Consumer Protection Act, which applies here to business, all right? There is a statute that deals with the recalls that take place as well. Laws that are formally enacted by the legislature, again, that's statutory law, what I just got through talking about. Then, so you statute enacted by a local government. It is an ordinance. So your, like for example, your municipalities and your villages pass ordinance, but these are laws also. The government body or commission created by a state, such as OSHA, which we talked about, Occupational Safety and Health Administration, administers the Occupational and Health Act. The FTC, Federal Trade Commission, which is somebody I had to call today, not today, this week. And the reason why I had to call them is because someone solicited me to become a mystery shopper. But what they did was they sent me what I already knew was a scam, were fake checks of nearly $4,000, and those checks were such that we had to make sure that they were valid. So I looked at them and I could tell they weren't. I did some research, and so I contacted the Federal Trade Commission, and of course there is a scam going on out there. And so what they'll do is out there to protect consumers and the public as well. So this is a government agency that's there for that purpose. The supreme law of the land that defines relationship between the branches of government and its people. We call that the Constitution or constitutional law. You run across that usually in criminal justice. In fact, I teach that as well. The first 10 amendments of the Constitution, we call them the Bill of Rights. Laws which relate to business or commercial transactions. You should know this one. That's what you just got through completing this last 6 weeks. Okay? So, decisions of the higher courts that set precedents, case law. So anyway, these are just some of the things that you deal with in terms of that. So take time to go over those, and they will help you. And so I want to say in conclusion, again, thank each of you for the participation in the classes for the last 6 weeks. It is very, very important that you understand that in order to get the best grades, you have to make sure that you submit assignments on time and follow the rubric. I've said that since day one. Follow the rubric. Very, very, very important. And that at this point, I said this before, I said this last week, that I'm accepting only assignments from week 4, 5, and 6, not assignments from 1, 2, and 3. And the final thing I want to say is make sure that you understand that the rubric matches the module. Whatever it says in the module for you to do for the written assignment details is usually mirrored in the rubric. And so with that, I wish each of you the best. Feel free to reach out to me anytime. You have my information. And even after this, I've had a lot of students that when I have finished, that they still kept in contact with me. I am on Facebook under Richard Wright, JD, which is interesting mentioning Facebook. I have some problems today and still do trying to get my Facebook operating. I saw that there was something going on with Facebook, and I deleted my Facebook in my phone and tried to put it back in, and the system won't let me. But other people I know who told me that they haven't, they've had problems with Facebook. But anyway, Facebook will be fixed. So you can reach out to me at Richard Wright, JD. So I'm going to give you a key phrase, which I've been talking about a lot, and it's actually the topic, business ethics. And that's what you need to provide. So I wish each of you the best and in your future operation and endeavors. And I'm going to say good afternoon to each of you. And if you have any questions, you know how to reach me.